Redemption's Guild is an upcoming multiplayer RPG where you can play with up to 4 friends online. As a massive RPG fan, I really wanted to find out more about the game's many gameplay features. So to find out more, I contacted the developers, and Michael, who is the president of Unlit Games, was kind enough to give me an interview. Trust me guys, this really is a game to get excited about. Redemption's Guild is an online RPG for up to 4 players. The PSVR desperately needs a game like this, but why did you want to make one?
We really wanted to make an online RPG for VR because we felt like there is a lack of, this genre of RPG in general, but specifically online RPGs in the VR space. I've been playing MMOs for, I believe, close to 15 years now. I'm a huge online role-playing game fan, and just a role-playing game fan in general, honestly. And I had this idea for like a handful of your friends and you playing a game, and then when your friends log off and you keep playing, you would unlock some really cool equipment or something really awesome to show off. And then when you guys get together the next day, or and a few days later, you can show them what you had worked for, like physically on you, in virtual reality. So you play a game like let's say World of Warcraft, and you unlock some cool shoulder pads, like a tier 7 shoulder pads or something from a raid that you had done last night. And the next morning, you're log in, you're playing with your friends, they invite you to a group, and they see your shoulder pads, and they're jealous. And they're like, wow, where did you get that? I can't believe you had that drop. We want to incorporate that kind of, customizability to your players. So we've, there's a good handful sets of armor for each class in the game at launch, and there's some more fun cosmetic items that you can unlock, and we're going to constantly be adding more, because that's really what we wanted to go with this game, is some way for you to play with your friends and get the social aspect, but also kind of dress up and be cool, and play a berserker with a 2-handed sword and find that really cool sword that maybe only 4 or 5 players have. And every time you meet up with your friends, there's some random people in the tavern, they're going to see that sword, and they're going to ask, and they're going to know that the percentage drop on that is ridiculously low and that you had really worked hard for it. And we feel like showing that off in VR is just got to be a great feeling, but no one knows. I've never played an online VR game where I had that feeling. So we wanted to make that feeling. We wanted to give players that option to be like that. So that's what we were going for, just a fun, strategic online RPG. We wanted to keep it small. We didn't want to go, in the MMO route. We had thought about it originally, but MMOs require a lot of players, and once those player populations drop, the whole game can die. But if you have a solid social, a smaller number, like a co-op dungeon-based crawler game, then even if the numbers are small, you're still going to have a solid game that's going to last. So we wanted to make sure that this game can stand the test of time, depending on where VR goes in the future. So players will always have something to do. So that's what we were going for when we wanted to build Redemption's Guild.
You are able to choose from one of 6 classes that each contain a subclass. You can be a knight, rogue, berserker, elementalist, cleric, or ranger. What is your favourite class to play as?
So at this point in time, we've been doing a lot of our testing with the knight. We've had the knight, rogue, berserker, elementalist, cleric, all playable, but we haven't had the ranger playable yet because we haven't started working too much on their bow. That's something we're waiting a little bit longer for, just till we get the core parts of the game done. But so far, the classes that we do have in, man, that's really hard. Each one plays so differently. I would have to say probably the knight, just because I'm a big fan of having a shield. I like having like a big massive shield on your back and customizing what that looks like, and so I would definitely have to say probably the knight. It would be my favorite most likely.
Borderlands instantly came to my mind when I read the description of the game. Did you get any inspiration from that game or other similar titles?
Honestly, I never spent a lot of time playing Borderlands. I love the concept of it. I bought it right when it came out, but I wasn't very impressed back then. But Borderlands 2 I actually did like a lot more. And once I started to realize how much fun that game would have been played co-op, I kind of wish I would have kept it and tried playing it with some friends, because I feel like that game really shines when you're playing with friends and not so much alone. But I wouldn't say too much inspiration came from Borderlands. I would say it mostly just came from MMOs, like EverQuest, World of Warcraft, Guild Wars, just basic, any type of online RPG, a little bit of Diablo in there.
You have shown quite a few locations the game takes place in. Do the enemies level up with you, or are there some packs of enemies you should avoid until you're a higher level?
So yeah, we've shown a couple of new locations in the game. Erida Dunes and Balrol Stands are the ones with the new graphic update. The Labyrinth and the Arena that we've shown are completely scrapped. Those are not what they'll look like at all. The idea is still there, the mode is still there, just the graphical part of it. They are going to be boosted quite high to be at the status and graphic fidelity of the other levels, Erida Dune and Balrol Stand, which both are adventure mode levels. So when it comes to the enemies leveling up, the enemies do not have levels. So to explain how this is going to work, I guess we have to take a step back and look at how the class levels work for players. So there is 20 levels you can progress through, but each level doesn't make you ridiculously stronger than the last. The game isn't broken up where if you're level 20 you're doing different content than a level you did at level 1, or you're level 10, so now you can't play with level 5s or 7s, or else you'd be way too strong. That's not what we went for. The game kind of plays more like Elder Scrolls Online, I guess is the best example in terms of the whole one Tamriel thing they did where everyone can play together and there's no, oh, I'm level 50 so I'm not going to play with the level 1. Like, no, you guys can play together. It's VR, there isn't massive number of players playing VR per game. There's no VR game right now that's got a concurrent 100,000 players playing, and they're doing that every day, so we can start breaking everything up by class and the Trinity and by leveling, and if they're teleportation or sliding, any of that. We want the whole game to be open. So if you want to play a level 1 rogue and your friend wants to play a level 1 knight and you want to play with the level 20 cleric, that level 20 cleric isn't going to be overpowered for you. He is going to have stat differences. His stats are going to be stronger than a level 1. Sure, he's going to heal more, his critical heals will be better. All of those things will change a bit, but there's not going to be like a 500% difference between a level 1 and a 20. We're talking smaller gaps between each level, and even from level 1 to 20, not massive gaps. The game has a good amount of skills, like spells and abilities that we're putting in at launch, and we're always going to be building more. We want players to utilize those spells to make them survive, to help other players, to crowd control the enemies and debuff them. So the game is a little bit more based on skill with little tweaks from leveling. But of course a level 20 cleric based to a level 1 cleric is going to be quite different, because they're going to have more skill points as they've unlocked more skills with. So the cleric might have gone down, their one of their subclasses, their healing subclass, and now he's got an extra heal or two that a level 1 cleric doesn't have. The level 1 cleric only has a handful of abilities, but this other guy can change between quite a larger handful number of skills to bring with him. So there is that. So when it comes to the enemies, taking what I said into consideration, we're not going to need to scale the enemies much with you, because if you're playing the game as a level 1 cleric or level 20 cleric, the game should still have a good amount of difficulty either way, but now the level 20 is a little bit easier for you. But that's not including when you face a rare enemy, when you're going for a world boss. All of those things are going to scale with you to an extent. But mainly when you're adding more players is when the game really scales. So, an example, I'm just throwing random numbers out here. Let's say a skeleton has 1,000 health when you're 1 player, right? So just you playing a skeleton has 1,000 health. It doesn't matter if you're level 1 or 20. They have 1,000 health. Well, it's going to take, a little bit to kill him. You're going to go through your little thing, and you're going to fight him. You're going to dodge attacks and do your crowd control, and he'll do what you need to do. You're going to have to use some strategy, especially if you have more than 1 or 2 or 3 enemies on you at a time. You're going to have to survive. But then once you start adding more players in, that's when we're going to start making it more difficult. So if you're playing with 2 or 3 players and you want to bring on 1 or 2 people by yourself, you're most likely not going to be able to do it easily, unless you've really, really mastered being able to dodge attacks, use your abilities just right, use your potions just right. So the game scales in a sense of how many players are in the level, more so than just what level the current class I'm playing is, because we really want to encourage everyone to try different classes. Bring a level 4 Berserker, bring a level 18 Ranger, bring a level 1 Knight, and bring a level 3 Cleric. Do it. It'll be fun. You guys will be able to do the content. The higher level you are, the little bit easier it'll be, but the content is all around. We're hoping to make it a bit more difficult than you'd find in just a normal VR game where you're just hacking and slashing non-stop to kill enemies.
Are there boss battles in the game?
Yes, there are boss battles in the game. So we have some rare enemies that we wanted to spawn, while you're playing. So the game is dynamic. So let's say you're playing in adventure mode and you're out exploring the mountain ranges, right? So you're out in Valrostan and you're, just following along a path up in the mountains, and you're exploring the cliff sides, and you play through once and there's nothing up there, right? Maybe just some nice grass you can relax in, or whatever you want to do, stare at the sky. Well, on your next playthrough, you might go up there and now there's a big rare boss, and this rare boss has got some ads with him and he's just ready to whoop your butt. So you go up there and you're thinking you're just going to relax with your mate and hang out and do some socializing, but now you're in a big boss battle. Those are the kind of experiences we want. We want the game to be random, we want it to be fun, and boss battles are how we really try to incorporate that. We also have planned, and we're hoping to get this in by launch, but our world boss battles. World boss battles are going to be the biggest encounters you have in the game right now at launch. They're going to be physically bigger, they're going to be harder, and they're going to have different mechanics that make them a little bit more unique. So those are going to be really exciting to show you all.
The game includes 3 modes. The first is Adventure. Is there going to be a main storyline to follow? If there is, will it be told in cutscenes or through NPC dialogue?
So yeah, there are 3 game modes. You have your Adventure mode, your Labyrinth, and your Arena. Yeah, one of the first ones that we've talked about is the Adventure mode, and there is a main story. We actually do have some quests that we're going to be building for a main story, so they should be in at launch for the main story, but the game isn't focusing on a story as much as say World of Warcraft is focusing. There's not like a massive main story that's going to bring you through everything and you're going to get thousands and thousands of hours of text and questing to do just for the main story. There are quests, there are a lot of quests to do, but for when it comes to the main story side of quests, we do have a progression, but we don't want to just throw in there's 40 hours of main story quests, because that takes a lot of time to build, that takes a lot of time to implement and get just right, and we don't want to botch up the main story until we can put a lot of time into it. So we are going to have some main story quests you can go through. It is going to tell you a little bit about the world, why you're here, who you're here with, who the dangerous people are, and what you're doing right now at launch. Like, what's the story right now where I'm at. Now, as we progressively launch more content, which we do have planned quite a bit of it for afterwards, we're going to continue to pull the main story towards that content. But we really wanted to focus on having the game be dynamic in all senses, so main stories will be there, but it isn't the main focus of what you'll be doing to go throughout the game. So we do plan on delivering the main story content and the questing content through NPC chatting. We're not going to voice over the entire game because that takes a lot of time and a lot of different people to voice act and get that perfectly in place. But we do have NPC chatting, so you will have some text you can read to progress through here and understand some things on where it's happening in the world and to push the story and the narrative, including just through the dynamic side questing.
The second mode is Labyrinth. Your party must find treasure and complete an objective. Are these locations randomly generated or crafted from the ground up?
So yes, the second mode is Labyrinth. So yeah, basically with the Labyrinth, what you're trying to do, we're still trying to work out exactly how we want to deliver this content. It's still up in the air on the complete outline for this, but the gist of it is you're going to be put into a labyrinth that we want to make very confusing, but we also want to give some kind of visual cues to help players realize where they're at, or if they've been somewhere before. We might end up letting people use some type of marker to place down or put somewhere to help them realize where they are, because we do want we do want it to be possible to complete. So, you know, that's definitely something that we'd love to have people suggest. They'd like to see that once the alpha and beta are out and people are playing. You know, we would definitely want to take in feedback from that. That's always been very important for us. But the general gist is, yes, you're going to be trying to go through. You know, maybe at the end of it, you're going to be, you know, killing a boss, or maybe you're just going to be finding the treasure. But you're wanting to get through this, and if you can get through it in the time limit by yourself or with your party, you're going to be greatly rewarded. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to reward people for trying to do these labyrinths, and it's not going to be 100% success rate every time. So people are going to have to be smart. They're going to have to try to, you know, look for visual cues. They're going to have to be marking things correctly if we implement that, and hopefully they'll get through. We'll get them out of the time. So for the locations, yes, we have actually talked about procedural generation, and it's something that we still plan on doing. There's no guarantee if that's what we're going to end up doing. If we can't get it in by launch, it's something we do want to add. But you know, we're definitely not going to launch the Labyrinth unless we do feel like it really can be random and dynamic. Because like I've said, that's where we want the game to be. We want it to feel very dynamic. So the Labyrinth is pretty much the, you know, the pinnacle of that whole randomness. That needs to be random, and that needs to be difficult to get through. So yes, random you know, proc generation is where we want to go with that, and we are looking into it right now.
The third mode is called Arena, where you and your party must fight waves of enemies. Is there going to be any PvP in the game?
So yes, the third mode is Arena. This is where you and your party are going to go be placed into an arena, and you're going to be trying to take down the enemies and survive as many waves as you can. You know, you see a lot of wave shooters in VR, and a lot of RPGs out in VR right now are more hacky slashy, you know, like kind of like you're in a wave full of a bunch of enemies and they're coming at you, and those are really fun. So we wanted to incorporate that as one of the modes you can do. So you can come into these awesome, you know, gladiator arenas and just try to take down enemy after enemy, and use strategy and placement and dodging attacks, and you know, taking down the bosses and their ads. And we want to incorporate you know, the general thing that you'd get out of an arena in RG as just one of our you know, core game modes you can do in the game. So for PvP, we do plan on having PvP in the game. We've tested it a little bit, but it definitely will not be in at launch. Something like PvP, especially in the RPG world, it needs to be balanced just right. You know, and there is work that needs to happen on the back end and the code and through all the game systems to get PvP to work correctly the way we want. But even just balancing alone is going to take some time, and we don't want to launch something broken. We're not going to just throw it in just because it can be there. We want to make sure to avoid, you know, feature creeping where there's, you know, there's 50 systems in the game and you can interact with everything and it's crazy and it's this and this and this, because then you start to lose. I feel personally though that you start to lose having features that are rock solid. I'd prefer myself to launch a solid game, you know, with the whole Unlit Games team, and the game, you know, of course games are going to have bugs, but, you know, we work on the bugs and we make sure there's not as many at launch. You know, if, you know, you launch something to early access, it isn't, you know, like at a pre-alpha stage. It is solid. It should be, you know, like a beta by that point. So we want to make sure that the things that we have in game are solid when we launch them. So we're putting a lot of time into questing, a lot of time into skills, player equipment upgrades, customizing your character through different means, you know, making the user interface fun. All of those things are what we're planning at launch to make solid. And then after the game launches, we definitely want to come back to PvP and make sure that we fill that that gap of killing some of your friends that a lot of players love to have. I'm a huge PvP guy, so I definitely love to see that in the game.
Having many different classes will certainly encourage a lot of replayability. Is there going to be any endgame content, or is that what the Labyrinth and Arena modes are mainly for?
Yeah, we were definitely hoping that having a large amount of classes and subclasses would encourage people to try different things out and play a lot of different classes, no matter what level they are, what level their friends are, and just have fun and experiment and just see what we have to offer in Redemption's Guild. So for endgame content, we are kind of going more down like the Elder Scrolls Online route of gameplay, where there, in the future, post-launch, will be content that's catered possibly a little bit more towards people that have a higher skill level, a little bit higher class level, possibly. But we really wanted everyone just to come in and play together. And there is harder content depending on how many people are playing. If you're playing during daytime or nighttime in the game, so there is that. But at launch, there isn't, like say a raid or something like that. But all the different game modes are completely accessible to anybody at any level with any of their friends' levels, everything right off the bat. And we do want to kind of keep it that way with that accessibility, especially because with VR you have a smaller player base than what a lot of developers would like, especially in the MMO or online RPG route. So we don't want to split that up too much, but if the game does good and we have a good player numbers, I wouldn't mind having some type of small requirements to, say we launch some type of dungeon or something. Maybe you have to be level 15 plus or 10 plus, but mainly I could see us doing more things of, there's a small quest chain. You have to go talk to someone, he'll introduce the new content to you. So we push an update and now there's an NPC in that area by the dungeon that needs you to go do a 5 quest chain to complete to gain access to it. Stuff like that. So there will be maybe small requirements to get in to certain areas, but we don't want to make it too difficult.
When is Redemption's Guild releasing, and is it coming out in for US and EU?
We actually don't have a release date yet, and we don't really feel too comfortable setting one yet, just because we aren't sure how it's gonna go. Especially like with PlayStation VR, it's a whole different ballpark developing on PlayStation VR. And just PlayStation in general. So I definitely want to say we're aiming for a 2018 release on PC VR. That's Oculus and Vive, etc. But PlayStation VR is a little bit different, and we're gonna see. I can't talk about some people that we've been in contact with, but there is some people that we've been talking with that may help us get on PlayStation VR in terms of getting it, made quicker. But I can't go into details on that quite yet. But right now we're focusing on building the core of the game, getting it set up with Vive and Oculus, and then once we have everything else set up, we start plugging things in, tweaking, optimizing, working with Sony systems with PlayStation VR. So there is definitely some gap between the PlayStation VR now. I can say that, but we're all working as hard as we can to get this game out. We're getting a lot closer to a release for PC VR, which, obviously correlates to being closer on PlayStation VR. We just have to go through all of the development hurdles of developing on the PlayStation 4, which, Sony's great helping with us out, and they're very active with talking back to us, to the developers, and helping us with our questions. So we'll see how that goes.
Do you have a price for the game yet?
So we don't have a final price point yet for the game, because things can always change based off the platform, and how things go more towards launch. But we're aiming for about $29.99. We feel like that's a good middle ground between being, some crazy price point, but then also being too cheap. So I think it's pretty fair, and we hope that the community think that's fair too, considering the size of the game. So yeah, that's what we're aiming for.
Thank you so much, Michael, for giving such an in-depth interview. It was an amazing insight, and it has got me incredibly excited for the future of Redemption's Guild. What do you guys think? Are you hyped for Redemption's Guild? Let me know in the comments below. As always, please like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more PlayStation VR content.